Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is October 2nd. On this day in 2018, Jamal Khashoggi stepped through the glass doors of the Saudi consulate to get some paperwork for his upcoming wedding. He turned back to reassure his fiancée, Hattis Cengiz, that it wouldn't take long, and then he disappeared inside. She stayed on the sidewalk waiting, holding his phones, expecting him to come back out smiling and ready to plan their future. But Jamal never came out. By nightfall, rumors were spreading. By morning, the world was watching. A familiar byline, one of the Arab world's most recognizable voices, had vanished. And what happened inside those walls would shake global politics, journalism, and international norms for years to come. Today, we're talking about the assassination of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Let's get started. By 2018, Jamal Khashoggi was both an insider and an outsider. He had once been part of the Saudi establishment, but had turned into one of its sharpest critics. And he wasn't some sort of fringe figure. He'd edited one of the kingdom's major newspapers, Al Watan, twice. He had served as an advisor to Prince Turki Al Faisal, the former intelligence chief, during his ambassadorial posts in London and Washington. Those jobs gave Jamal rare access to the upper tiers of Saudi power and a reputation for testing just how far the truth could be stretched in print. But things had changed at home. In 2017, amid arrests of clerics, activists, and businessmen in Riyadh's sweeping crackdowns, Khashoggi left Saudi Arabia for self-exile in Virginia. In his first Washington Post column, he explained why, quote, fear, intimidation, arrests, and public shaming, end quote, had become daily realities. From Virginia, his global opinion columns grew bolder. He criticized the war in Yemen, the blockade of Qatar, the silencing of dissent in his own kingdom. His words resonated in Washington, but they also carried risk. Friends told Reuters that Jamal was pressured to return home, but he refused. In his personal life, though, he was hopeful. He'd met Hattis Cengiz, a Turkish academic, and the two were planning to marry. To do that, he needed an official Saudi document confirming his divorce. On September 28, 2018, he visited the Saudi consulate in Istanbul for the first time. They told him to come back the following Tuesday. The moment he went inside, October 2nd at 1:14 p.m., was captured on an outside camera. For Hattis, waiting on the sidewalk, hours stretched into worry and then dread. For the world, that moment became the start of a story that revealed how far states would go to silence a critic. And for those of you who may have heard about the Riyadh Comedy Festival that just happened and wondered why people seem so upset about comedians going there, this story is a big part of the reason why. Jamal's return appointment wasn't routine. He was set up. Turkish reporting later revealed that consulate staff were told to leave early that day. The internal CCTV system, usually running, was mysteriously absent. By then, a Saudi team had already flown in. 15 men arrived from Riyadh on private jets. They checked into nearby hotels, met at the consul general's residence, and positioned themselves for what would unfold inside. At 1:14 p.m., Jamal entered the consulate. Inside, investigators later said, the operation moved quickly. Among the team was Dr. Salah Al-Tubaigi, a forensic specialist from the Saudi Interior Ministry. His presence, Reuters noted, was difficult to reconcile with any supposed persuasion mission. Turkish officials later claimed to have audio of Jamal's final moments. Journalists who were briefed reported him saying, quote, "I can't breathe," followed by references to cutting tools. It was consistent with Turkey's assertion that he had been killed and dismembered. Outside, the cover-up began. CCTV showed a man authorities identified as Mustafa al-Madani, one of the team members, leaving the consulate wearing Jamal's clothes and glasses. He walked around Istanbul's historic district as if to seed footage proving that Jamal had walked away. But his shoes didn't match. Meanwhile, a black diplomatic van left the consulate and drove to the consul general's residence. That vehicle would later draw intense interest from Turkish investigators. By evening, the Saudi team was already on flights back to Riyadh. The consulate's glass doors remained closed, and on the sidewalk, Hatis kept waiting. The first Saudi explanation was a simple denial. They said that Jamal had left the consulate and they didn't know where he was. But under mounting pressure, Riyadh's story shifted. On October 19, 2018, state media claimed that Jamal had died in a fight inside the consulate. But that didn't hold either. Days later, prosecutors admitted that it was premeditated. In November 2018, U.S. officials told the press that the CIA had assessed that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the operation. A detailed declassified intelligence assessment in 2021 made it official. The Crown Prince had approved an operation to capture or kill Jamal Khashoggi. Riyadh continues to deny that he ordered it. A UN inquiry in 2019 reached the same conclusion. This was a deliberate, premeditated execution. In Saudi Arabia, a closed trial convicted 8 people. Initial death sentences were later commuted to prison terms, 20 years for 5, 7 to 10 years for others, after Khashoggi's family formally pardoned them, as Saudi law allows. But high-profile figures named by Turkish prosecutors like Saad al-Qahtani and Ahmed al-Asiri were not convicted. Human rights groups called it a whitewash. Turkey at first pushed for its own justice. Prosecutors indicted 20 Saudis in absentia, including senior officials. But in April 2022, as relations between Ankara and Riyadh thawed, the case was quietly transferred to Saudi courts. Rights groups and Hatis Cengiz condemned the move as the end of accountability. Governments around the world responded with sanctions. The U.S. Treasury sanctioned 17 Saudis in 2018 under the Global Magnitsky Act, followed by further sanctions in 2021 on Saudi officials and the Rapid Intervention Force. European countries issued travel bans, but none of it touched the Crown Prince himself. Here's what's certain. Jamal Khashoggi walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October 2nd, 2018. A Saudi team was waiting. He never walked back out. His body was destroyed and his remains have never been found. We know that intelligence agencies, journalists, and investigators have connected the operation to the highest levels of Saudi power. We know that Riyadh denies the Crown Prince ordered it. And we know, years later, that we don't have true accountability. On that sidewalk in Istanbul, Hatis Cengiz stood waiting with 2 phones in her hand and a wedding on her mind. Hours later, she was making frantic calls to friends, to officials, to the police. Jamal Khashoggi went into the consulate expecting a piece of paper that would allow him to start a new life. Instead, his death became a symbol of what it can cost to speak freely. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found today's episode compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day, True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!